Hi, welcome to the small shed. This Saturday we're feeding the birds and getting some lights sorted in the house. See you in a minute. I've got a couple of things to do this week. Firstly, I noticed the lights under our stairs had gone out the other day, and I'm not sure whether that's anything significant. It's either bulbs or transformer, and I think they're all on one transformer. It's 12 volt halogen lights. It's unusual for them all to go out at once, but it has been known occasionally for that sort of thing to happen with just bulbs. As one blows, the next one along tends to get a surge, and that goes as well. So I'm going to have a look at those, and then we've got a squirrel-proof bird feeder in the garden that needs a bit of attention because the birds can't get at the food in it. So we'll have a go at that as well, see how we get on. So there are 3 lights under the stairs there, halogen lights connected I think to one transformer, 12 volt, somewhere in amongst that lot. If I've got to change the transformer, it's not a big problem because it must have slotted in through one of the holes at some point, but we'll have a look. Fortunately, I won't have to take the main power off for the main overhead lights with this, because it is only a 12 volt supply, and we need to establish first of all what's wrong. If it gets into the transformer, I'll have to kill all the power on the downstairs lighting circuit. And it is important to know where your power is coming from with things like this if they don't work, because that could just as easily have been cobbled up by me as a bit of an amateur some years ago and connected to a power circuit off the ground floor power circuits for all I know, although they are switched through from the main lights, so it should be a lighting circuit anyway. And as I've taken them all out to have a look and see what's going on, the top one you'll notice has gone on, so it must therefore be just intermittent supply or to the other two, because the top one was just a matter of jarring the bulb and it started. Or it's the bulbs, and I've just got a little tester on looking at just to make sure that it's that's what the problem is. Following on from my rants last week about television hand remote controls, one of my other pet hates is the fact that nowadays you need about 50 different bulbs to service your house, whereas in my youth you had a 40 watt, a 60 watt, 100 and maybe 150 watt bulbs, and they were all bayonet, and that was it. And you've now got large and small bayonets, large and small screw, LEDs, halogen, normal filament and so on, but we have got a fair selection. And as you can see, even here again, they're just so intermittent, these little 2-pronged bulbs, that it needs a waggle sometimes to get them to fit. So I've taken out the little glass parts and washed them and tidied those up. It's only when I've been watching the video that I can see there are some light staining from the heat rising upwards from them on the underneath of the stairs, and of course we can't normally see that because it's not an angle we'd normally be looking at them from. But at least it was a much easier and quicker job than I expected it to be. I had full visions. I'd already looked up the price of new ones from Screwfix because I thought it was probably a complete replacement job, but just put the rings back on, and I will turn them back on before I actually fit them into the ceiling, because again, that way you at least know that they're working all the while that you're putting them in, rather than putting them all in then find 2 of them don't work. So much easier than I thought. Simple job. No great problems involved in it. I will mention while this is on and I'm clearing up, it's interesting to have a look at the sideboard that we've got underneath the stairs there. When we bought the dining room suite of chairs and table, they gave, with as a sale offer, they gave us a full sideboard as well, which we hadn't got any room for really, and unfortunately it was about 2 inches too wide for the opening. But if you look carefully, you'll see that the side rails, which used to stick out a little bit further than the end of the sideboard itself, I actually took a saw to the whole thing and cut about 1 inch off either end, so that there's now very little meat on any of the joints on the ends, but at least it just about fits. You can see the tenon that was in there has been converted almost into a half lap. There is still a little bit of the other timber left, and of course this stuff isn't really timber, it's engineered timber. But by the time we'd cut out for the skirting boards and cut that inch off each side or so, it has actually gone in and is proving quite a useful sort of thing. So with that done, it's time to go back into the shed and have a look and see what all the problem is with the bird feeders. Got an odd little job today. We bought a squirrel proof bird feeder because we've got birds in the garden. We get quite a lot of sparrows and blue tits and a couple of robins, some finches, but sadly we've also got several squirrels coming in and out, and they tend to just hog everything that you put out and leave nothing for the birds. So I got a squirrel proof bird fat ball feeder, and I know these things aren't much use because squirrels are pretty bright and they usually manage to get round them. The only real problem with it is after 2 or 3 weeks the fat balls are still in there, because I've either fed the birds too much and they're too fat to get in there to get at it, or it's not a very good design. So I've got to see if I can do something with it so that we can at least retain a semblance of trying to keep it squirrel proof, but also allow the birds to actually eat the fat balls. So I think I've got 2 alternatives really. I can either, well 3 probably, I could either cut out every other vertical rod, but that I think would probably just leave so much room that a squirrel would get his head in there anyway. I could spread them slightly, every other, squash every pair so that there were larger openings, or I could actually get it so that this cage was closer to the centre one, and I think that's probably where I'm going to start from. If I can squash it, push the centre part upwards and push these side ones down, they'll hinge on the top and bottom rails and will tend to be pulled in closer. So I'm going to try that as a starting point. I don't quite know how I'm going to do it, but I think we'll just maybe start and take the lid off it altogether, and then see if I can't just start and either gently tweak them one at a time all the way around and just keep going round and round with small incremental bends, and see if I can do it that way. If not, I'll go to plan B, which will be to try and spread the bars. Some of them aren't attached very well anyway, but I suspect if I start doing that it will break some of the little spot welds on there. And then finally, last chance will be to cut out some pieces. But I'm just going to take the lid off first, and we'll see if we can get some semblance of order by just literally lifting the centre up and pushing the outside down to bring it in closer. Like it's popping most of the joints if I'm not careful. I think it's going to break them, but we'll see. popping the joints. So I don't think that's going to work. It's just going to totally disassemble the whole thing. So I think we'll go for the stretching the openings, or closing up some of the openings to make them larger in other ones. Stands more chance. Same problem, it is just popping the joints, but at least it will give them a chance. Clearly we're going to have to invest in something slightly different in the future, but that won't help the birds this winter. Just have to hope we've got the right number of pairs of vertical studs to be able to make this work, I suppose. So, it's worked all the way around it. It's not made it very pretty, but function over form, I think, is the order of the day. That should hopefully now get the little lardy birds a chance to get in and hopefully keep the squirrels at bay. We'll see. Let's go and get some fat balls and put in. Alright, pop those in and see if that's done any good at all. So there we are, a couple of reasonably easy quick fixes today. Hopefully we'll get on and do something different again next week. Look forward to seeing you next Saturday. I'll see you then. Bye!